All right. Hello, everybody. We are here. I am here today with the amazing Lamarr E. Lewis, who is a therapist on staff here at Atlanta Sex Therapy. And today we're going to talk about sexually silent men.
Mm.
And from my perspective, getting these men to talk in therapy and really open up has been one of my hardest challenges
Mm.
with that. And so I brought in my resident expert, Lamarr, to
Ah,
help these men. So maybe they'll see this video and they'll get some tips on how they speak up, and
sure,
then also just to educate me and all the women who are out there who are struggling with this guy who's not saying anything,
sure.
who's maybe even not initiating sex, and we can't figure out what's going on. And then I know the mistake a lot of women usually then make, well, you must be gay, which seems to how make it worse, and we still ain't got answers with that.
Hmm.
And then go from there. All
Right,
right. So if I had referred a guy to you, and I'm like, Lamar, he ain't talking.
right,
Fix it.
right.
What are you gonna be doing? What are you gonna be saying?
Uh, that's funny. Well, first, thank you for the dubious introduction. I appreciate it. Um, to your question, um, one of my gifts is getting people to talk. So, at some point we're gonna get to the nitty gritty.
Hmm.
Some people a little more difficult to pull that out of than others, but
Hmm.
we'll talk. And I think that one of the first things we would do is identify what the cause for the lack of initiation is. I think that's,
Hmm.
you can't really, and I don't mean
Yeah.
the surface, right? That's
Yeah.
like the behavior, like what's going on up under all of that.
Right.
Um, a lot of, and it's a broad cross section of experiences I've heard. Um, Sometimes it's just this anticipatory anxiety where
Hmm.
I don't know if she's going to say yes. I don't know if I'm going to be able to
Hmm.
perform. I don't know, blank,
Hmm.
blank, blank. The I don't know part causes them to just freeze up.
Hmm.
Um, it was a guy I was seeing recently, and he, um, early in the morning, his wife may want sex, but he didn't feel confident he could perform in the morning. So
Hmm.
he would wait till the end of the day once he had a couple glasses of wine and in the evening. And it's not that it was bad, but per him, and I love the way he was like a risk manager. So that was like his language. He was like, it's just a lost opportunity. So I think, and I never thought
Golly,
about
I
it
mean,
that way.
like
Yeah.
you got a point. You got. I
Yeah.
could
When he
have had a
said
whole
lost,
party,
yeah, he said
and
lost opportunity. I said, that
right?
actually makes sense. And I think
Yeah.
that, um, and I share that because something that I've learned sitting in this chair is
Hmm.
that most men, personally and professionally, in my experience, want to please their partners,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Um, they have a strong desire to make sure that their partner is pleased,
Yeah.
and they do. This is where the rubber meets the road. They
Hmm.
do what they think is best in order to
Hmm.
achieve that.
Hmm.
Where the issues come in, I find, is that there is a heavy energy of should. And that's why I always say should is a cuss word, because
Yes. Yes.
people say, well, you should, or I should know how to please her, or you should know
Hmm.
what to do to my body, or we've been together 20 years.
Yeah.
You should know. And I
Right.
always have to remind people, and again, even in my personal life,
Yeah.
I shouldn't know nothing. So I ask questions. You know what I'm saying? If I knew, I wouldn't be
To be
asking.
asking the
You know what I'm
questions.
saying?
Right.
Not everybody is, and I think a lot of it too, and we, constantly talk about how pornography and visually stimulating imagery impacts this.
Hmm.
But a lot of men, in my experience, think sex is supposed to go like
Yeah.
porn goes. Okay, I come
Hmm.
in, I'm rock hard. And to be
Hmm.
fair, a lot of women in my experience have felt that too. Why isn't
Yeah.
he hard? He should be hard right now. I'm naked in front of him. And especially as men mature,
Yeah.
I think one of the things that people don't realize, and I'm saying this with all the love in my heart and as professional as I can say it, we've seen naked bodies before. Um, some of us have seen a lot of naked bodies before, whether
Right.
physically in your space or, visually on the phone, VHS, DVD, whenever you got,
Yes.
And so at a point, it's like,
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the lack of a deeper connection sometimes,
Yeah.
or the inability to communicate those needs
Yeah.
is another
Yeah.
reason. They
Yeah.
may have people, as you know, people's sexuality shifts as they mature.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I just don't want to do missionary anymore. Maybe I want to try,
Mm-hmm.
another position.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I would love for you to get on top, but I don't know how to
Mm-hmm.
say that because for the
Yeah.
past umpteen years we've been doing
Right.
missionary, and
Yeah.
it seems like it's working, but I don't
Yeah.
know if it is. And I think
Yeah.
that, just the one of the many books you sent me, one of the ladies said, cause I want you to know I read them. One of the ladies mentioned like the most vulnerable place to be is in the bedroom, right?
Yeah.
And it's hard to
Definitely.
have these conversations. And I'm paraphrasing, she said it in a
Mm-hmm.
far more eloquent way, but like it's hard to have these conversations when we're both naked and it's not working.
Right.
Then
Right.
what's wrong? You don't
Yeah.
find me. You mentioned the gay part. The other part of it is you don't find me attractive. It must be
Right.
you. I must be
Yeah.
too fat. I must be too ugly. I must be too old. And
Right.
then the man is forced to deal with his own internal angst and trying to
Yes.
soothe this other person. That's what a lot of the guys come
Yeah.
to me for. They're like, I don't want her to feel like it's her fault. I don't want her to feel like,
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where, you just have to pinpoint back to the, your initial question, pinpoint
Yeah.
what the actual problem is,
Yeah. With
and
that.
go from there.
I want to say, I love that about men when they're
Mm-hmm.
like, I don't want it to feel like it's her fault,
Mm-hmm.
or I don't want to hurt her feelings, or whatever. Like, I don't want her to be insecure.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and like, I just love that heart, that heart, that intention.
For sure.
But I've also found that sometimes I just don't handle that intention well.
Mm-hmm.
And so like I've had like multiple clients, and we like, okay, because so you're concerned that you won't be able to get your dick hard when y'all interact sexually, so you're ignoring all of her sexual advances because you don't want to hurt her feelings if your dick doesn't get hard. Okay. But ignoring all her sexual advances, you don't think that's hurting her feelings? Because she's then lost, wondering what's going on. Are you cheating? Are you gay?
That
Like,
one, yeah, all that, yeah,
with
yeah, yeah.
that. So,
Mm-hmm.
can we maybe articulate something? Can we
Yeah.
have some type of conversation about it? And they always look like, huh? Like, just, I just, because when we're in our own heads, and I think one of the things about sexual issues is sometimes we don't really think about how we're thinking about it. We just kind
Sure.
of start reacting.
For sure.
So as opposed to thinking, is this the best way for me to handle this? We just kind of start ignoring our partner's advances, like
For
it's not
sure.
happening.
For sure.
And we don't think about that because we have to deal with our own insecurities of
For
what I
sure.
can do and I can't do. And
Right.
so what I've really learned, like throughout the years, is how tied a man's self-esteem is and self-identity is to the performance and the size of his
For
dick.
sure. That's
And
100% right.
it's and so it's yeah.
It's crazy. I
Yeah.
think that to add to your point, like I use myself as an example as I often do.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you watch enough pornography, like you'll realize you don't have the biggest thing in the world. Like you just
Right.
realize, like, you know what?
Right.
I don't have a whole arm
Yes.
sitting down there. And in real life, like that's okay. Right.
Right.
Um, More often than not,
Yes.
you have enough to get the job done.
Yes.
Right. I think
Wait, and I
that
want to, because I really just went over the statistics again the other day.
please do.
So the average vaginal canal is 3.5 inches long.
Mm,
With that, the average penis is 5.5 inches. So most men have more than enough to satisfy their partner
for sure.
with that. And once we start getting larger than that, then most women will say, like, you hit my cervix, you hit my uterus, is hurting. And that's a whole nother problem.
That
And
is, and
a couple of my clients, I joke with them, like, if you want to come back again, you can't tear the place up. So, like, you have to calm down on
and
some things. And so, but I
mm,
just want men to know, because there's this,
mm,
like, if I'm not, 12 inches, I'm not gonna be able to satisfy her. And most women, like, definitely it's some out there that will want
it's
that.
always
It's
something out there.
always gonna be some.
Right.
But like the average woman
The woman you
is
gonna meet. Yeah.
right, is not trying to have her cervix toe up just to have sex with you.
Especially not consistently. Like,
Right.
then and I think that for most men, and this is a big reason why I even got interested in this form of therapy, because I've been studying this on my own just for years, just because
Right.
I was that kid, right? I was just
Right.
that kid.
Mhm.
I wish I could bring some of my friends on to tell you how it was back in the day. You'll be like, oh, it makes sense.
Yes.
But my point in bringing that up is that another gap in sex education, right? But
Mhm.
not even just that. There's some people. Again, how do we learn this? How do we learn how to be good
Right.
at sex, right? And
Yeah.
you just have to keep doing it until you figure it out,
Yeah.
right? Some
Yeah.
people, but what many of us do is look at these visually stimulating imagery or whatever, pornography, whatever, and for men specifically, like that's how they learn. Like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm supposed to just go in there and ram it and
Right. Right.
blast it for two
Right.
hours
And I
and not
gotta say,
understand
it's not even pornography. Even regular general mainstream TV
that
gives
too.
you the idea that he is supposed to come in, insert his dick, and fireworks should ensue.
That's a fact. Yeah.
Period.
No,
Like,
that's a fact. And I
period.
think
Like,
that
and I think I
is
can
coupled
name
with that.
several
Yeah.
rom-coms where they actually had the fireworks in the background.
Yeah.
And I know that's probably that really was time thinking about it now to divert from naked bodies, but it's
Yeah.
still it's the idea that
Yeah.
my dick is supposed to make magic happen.
And I think, let me say to your point, like, because a lot of men, at least that I speak to, they may not watch that stuff, right? So that goes
Right.
to the expectation that a lot of women have about
Ooh,
what I'm
yeah,
supposed to
yeah, yeah,
have.
yeah.
I know,
Gotcha.
just my experience. A lot of men do watch porn. So
Right.
if you couple
Yeah.
these two kind of extremes, right,
Right.
how this is supposed to work,
Mm-hmm.
and then how that interplays with the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm a man who thinks that, okay, I'm supposed to last 2 hours, supposed to be hard the whole time, change the 17 positions, and she's supposed to just be at my beck and call. This is how I'm programmed.
Right.
In every sexual experience, and I've had to deprogram myself for that, right? Every sexual experience is supposed to
Right.
end up like this.
Yeah.
Conversely, from a woman's side, it's supposed to be passionate, romantic. Like you said, as soon as it's inserted, he puts me on the wall, and 2 minutes
Right.
later, boom. And it's
Yeah.
like, no, that's not reality. But we both
Everybody
have
got the
these,
wrong
yeah, we
picture.
both have
Right.
these misconceptions, and it's like,
Yeah.
and
Mm-hmm.
it's crazy. And so to the point about
Oh, wait. And that he needs to be looking in my eyes the whole time, too.
the whole time, and that's a whole
The
nother
whole
conversation.
time.
But I think that along with that, when this guy uses to on YouTube called the spirit of comparison, right? When you start comparing your experiences to that,
Yeah.
you realize that, oh, maybe I don't measure up. And then that's another
Right.
self-defeating thing
Right.
that is just another thing to work through. And we ain't
Yeah.
even talking about the trauma. Some people have literal sexual trauma. Men have report less
Right.
than women dealing with sexual abuse. But that
Yeah.
doesn't mean it doesn't happen as much or
That's
more.
true.
It's just men report
That's
less.
true. Yeah.
So, I know a lot of men I see at some point it comes up. Oh, I had a cousin do this. I had an uncle do this. I had such and such do this. I had a babysitter do this. And
Right.
I think that is another thing that plays a factor.
Mm-hmm.
When you're talking about these sexual experiences, what stuff have I not resolved internally that comes up in this very vulnerable space?
Yeah.
And I think that, a lot of men become silent about that because, who do I talk to about this? Who do I tell, hey, man, when I was 13, I didn't fight back when, my older cousin did this to me. And now I don't know what to do with myself. Like I've had a few guys come and they're like so confused about their sexuality, but they're not, they're not gay.
Yeah.
They just are confused because of what happened to them when they were kids. And they never really worked through that.
Yeah.
And I think that all of that also leads to that. But the point, I'm sorry, that's the point I was going to go back to. Performance, right? Like, all right, you mentioned working at fast food before we got on the call. I used to work in the same, making pizzas and stuff, right? So my performance was dictated, you know what I'm saying, by the job I was doing. Yeah. So when I was working at Casano's Pizza, How many pieces could I make? Were they made right? Were they cooked fully? Did I follow the directions? Did I put enough stuff on there? Did I not put enough ingredients
Right.
on there? Like that was my performance. Well,
Mm-hmm.
now my performance is, are people getting better? Are relationships improving? Are men having better
Yes.
sex lives? Things
Yes.
like that. And I use that as an example to show that the performance, the outcomes change based
Mm-hmm.
on the job you're doing, right?
Right.
So if I'm with this person, and this is something again I had to learn the hard way. Like if
Yeah.
I with one
Yeah.
person and that person orgasms really quick, then I think the next person is supposed to orgasm the same way, and they don't,
Really.
and I'm like totally thrown
Really.
off. Like what? Why are
Right.
you not?
Right. Right.
But
Right.
such and such as did, and a lot, especially when we're
Yeah.
younger, a lot of men don't like tease that out and process that.
Yeah.
And one thing that I will say as well that
Yeah.
I might get some pushback from, but I want to say it because I think it's appropriate to say.
Say it.
A lot of women are taught to stroke a man's ego, right? So they'll fake.
Yes.
They won't give. And what
No,
that
and
does for a
let me
person
say
really
that
quick. Go
because
right
I
ahead,
can say
please.
that's true
Mm-hmm.
because it's so funny. This is probably one of the reasons why I hired you
Mm-hmm.
is because like I'll be sitting with these guys and they're like, every woman I've ever been with has always had an orgasm. Okay, you know the math ain't mathing on that. From the first time you had sex, every woman you've ever been with has always had an orgasm. Okay, I'm so sorry to tell you that sometimes women lie, especially if they really want you,
Mm-hmm.
about them having an orgasm and how great of a lover you are. If they're just
Mm-hmm.
dating you, if it's just a one time, one off, why am I going to waste my time telling you a bad lover? I just don't sleep with you again.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why? And so I like men are just looking at me like, no, you're lying. They wasn't lying. Okay, but you gotta admit the math ain't mathing on that. There's no
Yeah,
way every woman since the first time you've had sex has always had an orgasm with you. You
for sure.
gotta know you wasn't you didn't know what you was doing at least the first 2-3 times.
Right.
So it can't be 100%. And they're like, no, 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 you're lying to me. That's not true. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, it is true. It's
Yeah.
just that now you finally with the person who's secure enough with you. She married you. She don't think she going nowhere. So now she realizes that she gonna be doing this the rest of her life.
Right.
So now she has a different motivation for saying, hey, can we do
This ain't
something different
working. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
sexually? Can
For
we
sure.
da da da? I know you think you've been hitting it from the, and making but actually I ain't been doing nothing for me at all. I've been faking all my
Mm-hmm.
orgasms. With that. And like the amount of women that I talk to who haven't figured out how to have an orgasm, or tell their partner how to give them an orgasm, or with that is astonishing. And
I, which
so,
which is which goes back to my
which
point.
goes back to like every woman
And and
you've been
and and
with has
so
always had an orgasm, and it's just like this disbelief. And I'm so
well,
sorry that women are lying to y'all like that.
and so that sort of circles back to my point,
Yeah.
right? Because men
Mm-hmm.
want to do a good job, right?
Right.
Some men, and again, I can say I've been guilty of it again because it's probably the space you're in. Don't want to
Mm-hmm.
give, um, they don't mind the feedback,
Right.
just when and how you give it,
Yeah.
right? And
Right.
I think
Right.
that if it's like in the middle of it, and person's like, hey, what are you doing? This ain't that. That's it. That throws a man off. He
Yeah.
done.
Yeah.
And sometimes he can't recover from that.
Right.
My point is to that point is if we aren't able to articulate our needs effectively,
Yeah.
hey, I need this. Um, and I don't want to put all the onus on the women. I don't want to do
Yeah.
that. But what I will say is that a lot of people in general, men specifically in this instance,
Yeah.
crave positive feedback.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm, doing
Yeah.
and and I'm thinking this is working, and you be, oh
Yeah.
my God, oh, it's the best, oh Jesus,
Right.
and
Right.
you're not really feeling that way, but you saying that to stroke my ego,
Yeah.
then in my mind, I'm going to be like, you know what, that worked. Let's do it again.
Right. Yeah.
And eventually, you get to a point where it's like, that's not
Yeah.
working.
That's
But
not
then the
working.
dude is like, you getting it,
But it's
huh?
been working. It's worked out my life, and everybody
They
saw
told me it worked,
orgasm. Yeah. It's your
and so
vagina that's broke.
right. And I
So
say, but I say that because like a lot of times I hear these
yeah.
different spaces how like,
Mm-hmm.
women will complain about not being satisfied and things like that. But then how many of y'all are fake? Okay,
Right,
you see where
right.
this
We'll
correlation
own
is.
that on behalf of women. We'll own that. We'll own
Yeah,
that.
but I get it
And
because a lot of men can't
yeah,
handle it. I'll say that too. I'm not
yeah,
saying like again it's either or. I'm just saying like there's a lot of stuff to unpack
Yeah.
when it comes to, and and let's be fair, because I just don't see heterosexual men, heterosexual couples. I see gay men and things
Right.
like that. This goes across, gender expression,
It doesn't
sexuality.
discriminate.
It
No
does not at
discrimination
all.
on
You know
this
what I
issue.
mean? And you're like,
Okay.
yo, like this is really a thing where people
Yeah.
just do not say
What's going on?
to save the
Yeah.
the relationship or to hurt the spirit of somebody from getting their feelings hurt. I'll
Right.
just grin and bear it. But
Yeah.
what that does is that it leaves people unfulfilled,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then for me, who wants to be, what I'm saying, into latter years of life, like, man, I never really had the sex I wanted to have. I never said nothing. So now I go my whole life, I wanted to try, I don't know, whatever. We just,
Yeah.
something. And I never did it, or we never talked about it, or,
Right.
now
Yeah.
I'm unable to do. You
Right.
know what I mean? So I think all that plays a factor as well. Like, what, like back to the gentleman earlier, what are the
Yeah.
lost opportunities you're having by not just saying, hey, I want to do something a little different?
Yeah. With
Or
that.
clearly articulating, hey, this
Mm-hmm.
isn't working. Why don't you go get the vibrator? It ain't nothing to do with you.
Right.
I need
Right.
direct
Right. Right.
clitoral stimulation with the vibrator, and you keep doing what you're doing. I'm gonna do this. We gonna get
Work
there,
it out together. Work
and
it out
eventually,
together.
dude gonna be like,
Yes.
"That's what's gonna take. Let's get it." Like,
Right. Mm-hmm.
oh,
Mm-hmm. With that. And let me say to anybody, if you want your partner to do something differently, if you can phrase it in a I want this, it'll be really good if it feel better for me if you do it like this. Or with that. Because like people want to be wanted.
for
And
sure,
so if you are saying, like you were saying, pounding like a jackrabbit. And so as opposed to no, stop, that hurts. Because of course that would shut anybody down. Like, wait, what? But if it's like, hey, babe, I want to feel you nice and slow.
yep,
Oh, okay.
it changes everything.
Jack, Jack,
It
Jack.
changes everything.
And just that simple. It was just a word and
And
phrasing.
the tone, see, like, a lot of people don't understand
Yeah.
how much the tone, like, if
Yeah.
you tell a man, it's something Chris Rock said one of his comedy specials a long time ago. If you tell a man something the right way, I mean, in a very sexually sensual way,
Mm-hmm.
he's paying attention. He's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, she said slow. She like it's all right, bet. And
Mm-hmm.
then he will, from my experience, hopefully he'll adjust. But to the point, I think this is a larger discussion to have as we
Mm-hmm.
continue.
It
Like,
is.
how do some men, most of us, again, how
Right.
are we taught how to have sex?
Right.
Right. Some
Right.
people
Right. Right.
maybe naturally have more rhythm, maybe naturally have looser hips, maybe
Yeah.
naturally have certain things,
Right.
athletic, in shape,
Yeah. Yeah.
whatever, that can make them more a more proficient lover as far from a
Yeah.
physical aspect.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you get
Mm-hmm.
beyond that kind of thing? How do you realize that there's more than just in and out? You can,
Yeah.
there's so many other things that you can do.
Yeah.
How do you, teach that to people, let them understand, like, hey, it's more than just lean over.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? There's more to
And
this than that.
fireworks is soon.
Yeah,
Okay,
boom, two
wait. Do
minutes
I need
later.
to let you go at 12 o'clock on the dot?
I got a couple minutes.
Okay, so in these last couple of minutes,
Mhm.
if you had a couple in front of you and the female is like, he won't talk. I've been asking him. I want us to have more sex, and I can't get him to talk. Give me like 3 or 4 things you can have her to do that you would tell her to do to get him talking.
Okay. Um, I mean, really, the first thing I would say is be clear about what it is you want. Sometimes the directive or the suggestion is kind of ambiguous. I want to feel
Mm-hmm.
good. I want you to do this. I want you to do that. Let's use the slow down example you gave. Okay, I want you to slow
Right.
down. How slow? Show
Mm-hmm.
me the rhythm that works best for you. Sometimes it's in the moment, right? Sometimes you got to
Right.
be intuitive and in sync with
Right.
your partner. Um, but a lot of times you can guide. Maybe you do
Yeah.
need to, like,
Yeah.
grab his hips and
Right.
show him the rhythm until he figures it out. Sometimes you gotta be that hands on.
Right. 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 Right.
Which leads me to my next point: how you present the information and when you present
Yeah.
the information is
Yeah.
critical.
Yeah.
If he's in mid stroke and yelling and screaming and fussing at him,
Yeah.
that's
And
going to
yeah.
ruin the experience. But
That
is
ain't
there a more
sexy.
tactful
Right.
way to do that? And to
Mm-hmm.
that other point, to the third point, your tone and how you say things. If it is in the moment, is
Mm-hmm.
there a sensual kind of sexual way
Mm-hmm.
um that can get his attention versus very abrasive kind of conversation. So you some clarity of the directive, when and where you say it, how you say it. I think are the three biggest things. And lastly, I would say exercising some patience is
Yeah.
probably critical because a lot of us, don't know, and to be fair to your point earlier about not knowing how to orgasm and things like that, because a lot of men need very clear people in general, but men in
Yeah.
this case need some very clear directives. If you
Yeah.
don't know what you need, then that's
Right.
hard for a man to conceptualize. And now
Yeah.
he's trying to figure it out and throwing all these suggestions out, and none of which could be what we need. So again, like being very clear about what it is you need from the onset. Like, hey, again, I need direct clitoral stimulation. If you tell me
Right.
that, then I know I don't need to waste a
Yeah.
whole bunch of time and the
Yeah.
labia and I looking all in here. Let me just zoom in and get what we got to
Okay.
get to, you know. And again, if this is is the pressure, like having that conversation, is this enough pressure? Is this,
Right.
am I doing it right? Too much tongue, not enough tongue, too, whatever the case may
Yeah.
be. And guiding through that process and being okay with that. Because again, ultimately, you may feel like, well, why I gotta coach a man? Why da? If you want the outcomes,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
gotta make some adjustments.
Yeah.
So that would be what I would
And
say.
so, I want to always say what worked for me yesterday might not work for me today.
That's a
So
fact.
how are they supposed to know if you're not communicating that and having conversations with them about that?
Mm-hmm.
And nobody can read your mind. And like, I mean, I know me and I know my girlfriends. Tell you we can change something in the same day.
That's a
Like it
fact.
worked for me this morning, it ain't working for me this afternoon
Mm-hmm.
with that. And so keep that in mind. Please keep that in mind. Okay, I want to talk real quick about the guy who won't take direction. If you're trying to tell him something, he's like, no, I've been in pussy the last 20 years. I know pussy. With that. So what
From my
how could
perspective or from their perspective?
from the girl's perspective,
Okay.
what can she say to that guy who like, no, this, I know what I'm doing.
Right. I would say, and to be fair, I haven't met that guy, so
Okay,
I don't know, what that's
right
like.
there.
But I'm sure I know they're out there.
Yeah.
And for a woman dealing with that guy, I would say that, wow, that's such a great question. I would say that you have to identify, to me, what motivates a person, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if and also one and identify, why is he clinging so hard to this? Why is he so
Mm-hmm.
resistant to change?
Mm-hmm.
Could it be that he kind of grew up in a kind of more traditional patriarchal environment, and the man is always right? And I know
Mm-hmm.
I think I've told you before, like I know what I was taught, what my grandfather told me. Um, and now being in this seat, I'm like, Lord, why would I ever do that? But that's the age you grew up in. Like none of
Right,
that's
right, right, right,
mattered.
right.
Um, and also, what were some of his other experiences? There
Yeah,
may be a reason why he's trying to exert control. Maybe control was taken away from him at a young age, and there's a
that's
reason
true.
why.
That is very
So you
true.
gotta. I would say know your partner if you in like more like a long term kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then back to my earlier point, it's just like at work, right? You're a leader. I've been a leader. When you managing people, right? When something that one of my old supervisors told me that really, you know, impacted me was that nobody shows up at work wanting to do a bad job. It's just a lot of employees
Oh,
don't know what
yeah.
to do,
Yeah.
right? And I would view this the same way. Like no person wants to be a bad lover. Nobody shows up like, what, I'm about to ruin
Right.
this sexual relationship.
Right. Right.
Like nobody wants that. Like,
Yeah. You're right. You're right.
And so if you approach it like that, and if you look at it, like, okay, what's the resistance? Like if I'm telling you I need this, and what's the issue? And it could be like you said earlier, a person. I know. Again, I use myself. I was like that for a long period of my life. My whole identity was wrapped up in my sexuality, and
Yeah.
so it took me a while to realize I have more to offer. I know for a lot of
Right.
men, it's hard to um, relinquish that identity, especially if you feel like you've been king
Mm-hmm.
dingaling all your life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's very jarring for somebody to tell you, no, it's not that. You're not in this area. You ain't, at least what I need, right?
Right.
And again, I think a lot of it goes to how we're relaying the information. Maybe you saying it again if y'all both naked and he's upset, maybe it's not the time to say it.
Right.
Maybe it's you have a softer situation and you can have that conversation there. And some men they just are what they are. They're not gonna change. And then you have to ask yourself, like ask anybody, what you gonna do?
Right.
You know what I
All
mean?
right. Let me ask you another question before I let
Sure.
you go.
For sure.
So you said timing a couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think is the best time?
Not when you naked.
Not when you naked. Okay. Okay. All right. All
I
right.
wish people understood that. Again, personally and professionally, people understood this ain't the time to have this conversation. I'm not
Okay.
there right now. Again,
Okay.
it's very vulnerable. I mean, how much more vulnerable can you be than naked trying to have sex with the person you love? Like, there's
Right.
not many more vulnerable, what I'm saying,
Things and
experiences than
places.
that. So you're like, okay, so what do I do? Like, how am I supposed to,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
I would say like any type of conflict or any type of, hard conversation, set
Mm-hmm.
aside a time for that to
Yeah.
where you're able to just talk,
Mm-hmm.
and express yourself openly.
Yeah.
And shameless plug, if you need an objective third party to help you talk through that,
Mm-hmm.
we're here for that.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's hard to have that conversation with
Mm-hmm.
somebody. That's why we're here to help give you
Mm-hmm.
the tools to have those conversations.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because a lot of times we're not taught that. We're not taught, how
Right.
do I tell a person what I need when what's
Yeah.
been reinforced is that
Mm-hmm.
you supposed to know, you a man. You're
Yeah.
supposed to get her supposed to ramp, like you said, 2 minutes later, fireworks. Why is it
Right.
not happening that way?
Yeah.
Well, that's
Yeah. Yeah.
not
Yeah.
reality. You
That's
know what
not.
I'm saying? So
That's not
I would,
biology. That's not reality. That's not. All right.
it
And
just don't
even
work that
if
way.
it was reality, it wouldn't be reality 100% of the time.
That's the other part. Even MJ
Yeah.
had an off day. You got to know you're not gonna perform to the peak. And I
Right.
think that's another thing to
Yeah.
the to the to sum up everything
Yeah.
is the pressure we put on ourselves to
Mm-hmm.
perform.
Mm-hmm.
We feel like I read articles. I read one of the books you gave me. I feel like where they were talking about like the percentages of sex, and like 10 or 15% is supposed to be is like
Yeah.
great, and like
Yeah.
20% is good, and
Yeah.
a lot of it is
Yeah.
average, and some are just really bad. Like when you really
Right.
break down the percentages, you look at it like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, so out of 1 out of 10 times, two gonna be dope, two gonna be
Yeah.
okay, three gonna
Yeah.
be, and 3 to 4 gonna be, and two to
Mm-hmm.
three gonna be terrible. When you look at
Right.
it like that, okay,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
that this is just my time to suck, and it, it is
Right.
what it is.
Right.
You know what I
Right.
mean? Now, if it's
And
more
I,
than that, it's something different.
yeah, and what that book says, the next line, either in that paragraph or after that paragraph, it says the couple that can kind of laugh it off, like, oh, that was terrible, and come back on a day when we are awake,
Mm-hmm.
aware,
Mm-hmm.
desirous, like,
Mm-hmm.
in a generally good mood, like we're ready to engage again. Like that's a couple that can probably make it through any storm.
For
Like,
sure.
yeah, let me get a rain check on that tomorrow.
Yeah,
All
that
right.
was trash. Let me bounce back. Let me get a nap. Let me get some Gatorade. I'm back at you. Give me,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
we'll be
yeah,
back at
yeah.
it. Yeah.
So let me finish this work project. Let me, get my mama out the hospital. Like it could
Right.
be a
Deal with these
myriad of
kids.
things.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Right, with that. And then let me, get you on the weekend after I took a nap, with that. So I want to reiterate what you said because I know me and across the board, my supervisees, we struggle with people who don't know how to talk about sex and say
For
things
sure.
out loud. And so one of my supervisees the other day, we were just talking about just getting a couple, one party in the couple to say the word sex
Mm-hmm.
out loud was a struggle. Like we had to spend the whole session on like, y'all got to say these words. You got to use the
Mm-hmm.
language. So if you are dealing with somebody who is sexually silent, and I know it's sexually silent women out there too, so we'll
For
talk
sure.
about that on the next call.
Mm-hmm.
Sexually silent women. But I had Lamarr today, so I want to definitely get his male perspective. But come into sex therapy. Like come in and have a session with us. We will ask those hard questions. We will say the words that you probably can't say. So
That's a
like
fact.
with one couple the other day, I just said, okay, well, what about a titty fuck? And they both look like, huh, we did used to do that.
Yep.
Okay. But I think, they were scared to say it out loud for whatever reason. And so
Yep,
having somebody who's just going to throw something out there as a possibility, because what happens is couples get so in their insecurities of what they can't do,
for sure.
they don't pivot to what they can do, what they
That's a
used
fact.
to do,
That's a
what,
fact.
and so with that.
That's a
And so I
fact.
just want y'all to know we're a resource. We are here for
Mhm.
you. Please reach out, atlantasextherapy.com. You can work with
Mm.
me. You can work at Lamarr. Yes, sir.
I just
What?
want to add this
Yes.
last to your point,
It's okay.
and just because you mature
Mm-hmm.
does not mean you
Right.
can't do what you used to do in your 20s. I saw a video
Right.
on this and I shared it with an older guy. Hey man, you're not 20 no more. That doesn't mean you can't have good sex. It just means
Right.
you may not be able to do some of the stuff you did when you was 20. And
Hey,
that's okay.
hey, hey, it, it. You can't swing from the chandelier anymore. Get that. I get that. But this chair over here from the kitchen, oh, we can make magic happen. Make
Let's figure this out
let's
together.
figure this
We
let's
done
figure
we
this out.
something you
And
said a
so
long time ago. Hey man, if I can't do it with two, who am I supposed to do it with? Because if I go out, that's a whole nother
right,
situation. But
right,
you want me to deal with this. So what you want me
right,
to do? And
right,
when you start putting it in
right.
that language, people conceptualize it differently. So
They do.
you can still
It's
have
that.
good sex. That's the goal.
Yes, you can. You can. I'm gonna tell you the day you die. Like it ain't you always be doing something. You always be doing something.
That's the
So all
plan.
right. Thank you so much for your time, dear sir. I
No
appreciate
problem.
it greatly.
Indeed.
If y'all want to work with Lamarr, please reach out to him. He is available. Are you fully booked these days? We got a wait list for you yet, or you got some spaces for the
I
people?
always, hey man, even if I'm fully booked, I'll find some space. You know what I'm saying? I ain't
Okay.
got no problem finding space. That's
All right, all right. So y'all heard it from the van. If you want to work with us, we want to work with you.
for
All
sure.
right, everybody have a great day. All right, bye Lamar. I hope you enjoyed our content today. We are here at Atlanta Sex Therapy to serve. If you did like our content, please like, subscribe, and share it with a friend. Also, click the little bell so you can get notifications when we put new videos out. People don't know what sex therapists do, and we're trying to get the information out there and spread the word. So I'm going to ask you to send this to 3 people because you never know who may be in need of more good information about sex. Thank you, and just have a wonderful day in life.